Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I've been talking about dumbness or low consciousness and lower vibration and going to the lowest common denominator and going to sleep and not wanting to think for oneself and not wanting to be honest about things. The dumbing down of America and the ads. I showed some ads from a documentary on HBO. And it was a scam in Ohio to give $1 billion to a failing nuclear power plant. And there's a petition to overturn this law that had been passed. And they started to run ads saying, the Chinese have taken your jobs, now they're going after your energy, which made no sense. They're going after your energy by sending people to your door to petition you. Like just dumb shit that, just the tone, these really bad ads. And you can see that in my last video, the video that's put up on August 29th. Today is the 28th, but this is the introduction to the video that'll be up on the 30th of August. And so I was thinking about this. For all those people who believe that we have a democracy, that we have a working democracy and we have fair elections, and the most powerful man in the world is the president, that Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world. And before him, Joe Biden was, and then Trump was, and before that was Barack Obama, and then George W. Bush, and then George Herbert Walker Bush, these various people, right? And that the people with lots of money and power, people who have generational wealth, powerful families, corporations, religions, any number of, powerful organizations and people, would allow a group of people, in this case the American population, to pick a leader that would govern the whole world, right? That they could pick a guy like Donald Trump, that you could pick somebody like Donald Trump or somebody like Joe Biden, and that person would be free to do whatever they wanted within the constraints of their presidency, and that there wouldn't be any way to control him. There wouldn't be something above him. There wouldn't be people he had to answer to. And that he could come in and just do whatever he did with the world economy, the tariffs like Trump's doing, all these things. That he could come in and just wreck things and destroy things and hold people accountable, the people in power. I mean, all these criminal people that are out there, he could go after them and target them and investigate them and do whatever. Be within the power of his ability, or just in terms of using the American military and all these things. I mean, there's some check and balances in the system. Those checks and balances aren't about people with tons of money and power, people who want to hold on to their position and also want to make sure that they don't get targeted by the media and all these other people. Like there'd be a free press and a media that would be able to write things about these people and investigate these people and publish things about them and make it known to the American people that what these people are up to. So it's silly to think that, right? It's silly. It's silly to think that people who, think about how controlling people are. You think about people with OCD. You think about people with abusive issues, abusive tendencies, people who make people bow to their will, right? Have like basically human slaves and want to make people serve them and want to make people, scam people and get lots of people to give them money, all the people that call up elderly people and scam them out of their retirement money, or all these people that do criminal activity and force other people to give them things and take things from people, and rapists and all these people out there that force themselves on other people and force their will and make you adhere to what they want. So every person listening to this, you have at least one person in your life, probably many people, bosses, ex, girlfriends or boyfriends or, relatives who have forced you to do things that you didn't want to do and do it in a totally bullying way. Everyone has been bullied in one way or another. And bullying is forcing somebody through physical intimidation or some other sort of manipulation and intimidation. People have manipulated you and made you do things, or coerced you and tried to make you do things against your will that weren't in your best interest. And that's a widespread human behavior. But that would be completely not part of the electoral process. Cheating there wouldn't be any money, dark money. There wouldn't be any money, people buying elections. There wouldn't be anybody influencing politicians. It's a silly fucking idea because there was a study that was done, and I could look up the study. I always say that, but why bother? Because you don't need a study. That when they looked into any kind of political issue, the side that had more money always won 100% of the time. Of course it would. And so money buys policy. Money buys political movements, and it always has. And so if you understand that, it's a silly idea that Trump would be president and he'd be doing this all on his own without any sort of oversight. And that there wouldn't be people that are propping him up and making him do or wanting him to do exactly what he's doing. That they're, using Trump in some way to push this agenda that they want. Like they want this agenda. That there isn't anybody above Trump. Like why would you believe that Trump would be it, right? And not just Trump, but every 48 years, it's a new person they put up there with no continuity to the government. A lot of these people are lifelong politicians, but we now see a guy who his first political office was president in Trump. And so he has no political affiliations. He isn't liked by the Republican Party. He's not really a Republican. And that this guy could come out of nowhere. You could have somebody come out of nowhere and be elected and just wreck the fucking economy and all these other things. The government, all the things that he's doing. So it makes no sense. Like, why would anybody believe that? Why would anybody believe that people who have money and power and like to control things would allow something as random and as easily as manipulated as people's votes are and allow them to be the decider of what happens with the most powerful governmental officials? And there wouldn't be any way to control that outcome. And there wouldn't be any way to control the people who are elected, despite, even if they were fair and free elections, that they could control anybody who's elected. That they would have a way to do that through bribes and threats, and they would be able to, they would control the electoral process so the person coming in would already be bought and sold by them. Of course they would. Like, what other way would this thing run? And would you trust the fucking American people to make decisions? Look at these dumb motherfuckers out there, right? And so, what I'm talking about is lower consciousness. And, I am a slacker. I'm not, some great, whatever. I'm not the top of the fucking totem pole in terms of, spirituality and consciousness and, IQ and education and these things. All the things that you measure intelligence by. I'm okay. I should be average. I should maybe be slightly above average. Just because maybe I've had more lives than other people. I have a number of past lives, maybe an older soul. But I should be slightly above average, right? I shouldn't be in the 80 percentile, right? 80%, or higher, especially with the spiritual stuff. It just shouldn't be that way. Even with the spiritual stuff, I'm into it, but not great. And so I don't look at myself as the epitome of human evolution. And so if you, see yourself as oh, I'm okay. The guy who went to Idiocracy, right? He was no genius in his time. He goes back and he goes to the future and he's fucking the smartest guy in the world, right? So this is crazy what's happened here in terms of the dumbed down, the dumbing down of the American population. And so there's no way you would leave it to chance and vote, right? Not these fucking people out there. There's no way. No one in their right mind would think democracy is a good idea. When you see all these people, 45% of adults are obese. They're eating food. Maybe you have a few with a thyroid condition or some, other reason beyond their control to be obese. But everyone else is doing that to themselves and can't find a way to reverse it or stop it. That's just half the fucking adult population is obese. And kids growing up, they're not changing that, not figuring out a way to be healthy. And that just goes across the board of all these things. Eating things that are known to be carcinogens, eating bad food, just backing people who are known liars, gambling and at-risk behaviors. Gambling is just throwing your money away. The system's rigged against you. And so you have all of that, people just making bad decisions. It's 60% of the population is incapable of abstract thought. And you can see it like in the poorer areas of the world. So on a global basis, 60% can't even think abstractly. And you're going to leave fucking the country and the world in their hands? No, you fucking do that, right? So the whole thing's silly. Everything that you see is very silly. That this idea that Trump is president, he's doing these things on his own, and he isn't to have any sort of oversight. There isn't people that are controlling this and wanting him to do exactly what he's doing. You know, the Jeffrey Epstein thing is maybe being thrown out to control him. Like if he's doing something they don't want to do, they're like, hey, we'll fucking fuck you with this Epstein thing and take you down that way. You know, they probably don't want to do it because, like, what's their replacement? But, you know, if Trump's acting out, they have ways to send him a message. Anyways, it's silly. Like, the guy is not running the fucking country. They don't. Like, every 4 years, every 8 years, they put in some new random fuck to take control of this very powerful position. No, of course you wouldn't do that. It'd be stupid to do that, right? It's stupid to... It can only be performative. It can only be political theater. Because it would be stupid to leave things to chance and the American people to make the final decisions because, I mean, people just suck and the system would go down from just incompetence. Like, these people aren't capable of judging other people and voting for appropriate people and understanding when somebody's being sincere and being authentic. They can't do that. They fucking suck at it, right? So anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, Friday, August 29th, I was doing a voiceover yesterday that I said I was going to talk about my teeth, and I may do this at the end of this video, depending how long it is and what's going on with me, but mostly good news. I'm not getting the tooth removed. It doesn't appear I have an infection in there. Possibly do. Either way, it's numb. I went to a better dentist, and I have some things to talk about it. But whenever I talk about that, sometime in the near future. But let's get to this first. So, bunch of stuff to cover about RFK Jr. and the purging of the CDC of insider big pharma shills, right? Which is, you know, the one kind of good thing that's going on with the Trump administration at this point. But first I want to talk about this. So Don J. Lemons, here he is with Jen Psaki.
What you tweeted.
Here, let's go back here.
Jen, I want to put up what you tweeted. Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayer does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers.
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works. I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
Prayer is a very powerful source of comfort to millions of people around the world. I recognize that. I value prayer myself. But the point is, it's not enough. It is not solving the gun violence epidemic in our country. And I will not stop raising that because I think that is a key point people need to understand.
So, holy shit, right? This kind of sums up everything that is wrong with the political process. Because if you're listening to Jen Psaki or the fake Christian Barbie truther, Jen Psaki, I don't know who Jen Psaki is. If you're listening to Jen Psaki or the fake Christian Barbie truther, then you're the problem. If you think either one of them has a valid point, you're the problem, right? Because they are just both icky, right? These are like these, witches, these bad women, these Kali from India, the women that, eats the baby, like these types of things. Because neither one of them prays correctly. They're both using their point of view neither one of them has a relationship with God. they use prayer as a manipulation, in this case, as a way to get their agenda. Jen wants to take your guns, which, the gun issue, there was an event that happens. I don't talk about these events for the obvious reason, but, these events are always politicized when there's these events. These things they're already talking about gun control as soon as it happens. Something that happens at a church or a school or something like this, especially when it involves kids. And they always lay on this sanctimonious, shame on you, how dare you bullshit, right? When neither one cares about the victims, or, the victims in air quotes. No one cares about any of this stuff. They have a political agenda, right? And the fake Christian Barbie truther doesn't pray correctly. Because if you're going to pray correctly, there's one right way to pray. And that's praying to God to accept God's will. Remember I said, let's all pray right now that America gets exactly what we deserve. Let's all pray right now. I said this at the beginning of a video. How many people are willing to do that? Let's pray to God. God, give America and Americans and me personally exactly what I fucking deserve. I'm not praying for you to change anything and bend reality to my will, right? This is why I'm a realityist. Not a realist. A realityist, right? I'm also a realist, but not, as best as I can be. But accepting God's will, because we have some scars. We have things our soul and our collective souls have signed off on that we have to endure. We're going to have challenges. We're going to have things we don't like. And ultimately, we're going to die, which is, the big one for everybody. I mean, most of this stuff's warding off death, right? And so, when somebody's facing death, of course, they're going to want to pray to God. Please, let's not let this happen. Whatever. And that trumps all these political bullshit things and these agendas. I mean, for some people it's, beyond that. The political agenda is, beyond all that stuff. But, if you were going to pray correctly, you would say, let God's will be done. That whatever God wants, we accept. God, please just do whatever needs to do whatever you need to do to help us embrace our divinity within us and your will. That's the only correct way to pray. Meditation is better because you receive God. In the Sizemore system, Babaji said praying is begging and meditation is receiving. Meditation, you're receiving God in God's true form and accepting God for whatever God is, the truth of the situation of your life and your personal situation and the collective situation. And you're accepting God's will. And you're connecting with God in God's truest form. And then the truth that you don't want to see is there because God's going to tell you the truth. Or he's going to show you the truth, or you're going to feel the truth. And so these bitches and these fucking scumbags in Washington, D.C. are not about that at all. They're about using political power. That's what Jen Psaki's saying. That prayer isn't enough and God can't change things. So, do you believe in God? Because if you believe in God, then everything is possible, through the divinity that manifests through everything and everybody. And that, that God is everything, that there's a plan here, which includes death, which includes tragedy, which includes difficult circumstances. And so her saying that politics solves problems better than prayer, like she said, prayer is a comfort. Well, so is politics. Politics is, this idea that these leaders are doing what's best for you, that there's some group out there, like the Cubies and the Trumpers going after the deep state, this idea of Trumpers going after the deep state. It makes you feel good that there's politicians and people in power out there that are working to bring about sanity to America, right? My wife and I was watching that dark money thing. And the problem with the people who are making the documentary, it's a good documentary on HBO, but they're centering around abortion. There's two different There's part one to part two. Part one takes place in Ohio, which I talked about in my last video, and the other one's just talking about Washington D.C. and this movement that was started by that was pushed through by the Right to Life movement to have unlimited ability for corporate money and all these things to get rid of Roe v. Wade. And the people who are pro-lifers are not good people and godly people. They just happen to be at least somewhat truthful to this idea that life begins at conception. And so, but they ignore everything else, right? They suck and they're just horrible people. They're not godly people. But they are on the right side of the fact that life begins at conception, right? Where these liberals and all these people who, they don't like it when something happens in a school, but they don't care about what happens in the womb. So there's all this bullshit on both sides, right? They're all full of shit, right? And, accepting God's will would be easy. And there is no political way of solving problems. We've seen that. Politics does not fucking solve problems. You don't solve problems through making laws. You have to make better people. People have to make themselves better by their relationship to God. People have to embrace their higher nature. That's why I say only spirituality will save this world. And it's a truth. It's a realityist, right? This is beyond any truth or bullshit and any other things you hear out there. It's not my thing. I didn't say that line. It comes from Babaji, the second master of the Sajmark system. Only spirituality will save this world. Because that's the truth. It has to be spirituality, and that's people's relationship with God that elevates you. You have divinity within you, and if you pursue that divinity, you become a better person. And what we need more than anything else is better people. I mean, that's our problem, is people suck, right? And we're manifesting things that are bad. And we have these thoughts, and we act on those thoughts, and we manifest reality. And the reality that we're manifesting based on our bad choices has made the world the way it is. So much so that the system has to come down because it's unredeemable, right? Which I say all the time. And so you have these two bitches. The great Christian Barbie truther doesn't go let God's will prevail because Trump is doing all kinds of bullshit things. Most of them are things that are there to take down the system. But even if they weren't, even the good things, they're not going to change anything. Even if you made all the right political decisions, if you don't do it with the idea that you're going to submit to the will of God and that you're going to embrace the divinity within you, it's not you don't make good there's no outcome. Like the outcome is still hollow. Like it's only when you're doing God's will and you're accepting God's will that you're doing quality work. If you bow before God and become a servant to God and your ego submits to God and you do whatever you're supposed to do, not what you want to do, you do what God wants you to do, even if you don't like it, that's the only real change. And that's, the people who do that, they're the ones that are making the world a better place. Because they're getting rid of the problem that is you, right? But anyways.
And it is not protecting these kids. And the issue here is the guns. There are more guns in this country than there are people. This is the 5th school shooting since August 1st. Right. Since August 1st. And that's when schools reopen. This is the 57th school shooting this year. That is a crisis. So when people are who have positions of power, their platforms to attack me, instead of talking about what they could do, what they should do, what should be done to solve it, that to me is what's disappointing.
So I, don't believe that people are mature enough to have guns. We're not really mature enough to have cell phones. We're not mature enough to have cars. We're not mature. You go out driving and you'll see people out there who are, it's everybody in general, but misusing their vehicle, right? Speeding through people, tailgating to make people move out of their way, just weaving in and out of traffic, for no reason, like to get there maybe seconds earlier than you would. It doesn't shave anything off of whatever it is, and ultimately there's a lot of deaths caused by reckless driving, right, and aggressive driving. And then people who they're just incompetent drivers. They're going too slow. They're not, they don't have their mental faculties, whatever it is. But then there's people driving drunk, right? And so, how people misuse their cell phones and how people spend way too much time on the internet and screens because we're not ready. We're like monkeys with advanced technology. We aren't mature enough to use any of that technology. And weaponry, starting with guns and then moving all the way up to nuclear bombs, we're not mature enough to have any of that. Like you see what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, what's happening in every war, what happens in streets of people, using gun as a way to enforce and impose their will on other people, right? And so human beings are not really mature enough to have any of this stuff. We haven't developed the wisdom, maturity to have these powerful things. Whether it's the internet, whether it's going to be AI, whether it's any of these things. We're just not. It's obvious we're not. And we're degraded. We're unnatural. We've gone in the wrong direction. We've, emboldened our egos. But in that, if you're going to get rid of the guns, you have to get rid of all of them. You can't let just the military and the governments have guns. We see what that happens when it's just you have disarmed people. The only case for people to have guns is in the Constitution is to counterbalance the Second Amendment, which I'm not a big fan of, but it counterbalances the government's abuse. When you have one group that has superior weaponry, well, look at what happened to the Native Americans. Look at all through history, all the recent, these countries that they've stripped their guns away from people, what the government then does, and whatever happens, and then in a post-apocalyptic situation. It's not great. Like, it's not, guns are weapons of death, and, people having power over life and death, it shouldn't. Like, you look at the normal people, and they just don't have they just don't make good decisions about the smallest things. Never mind about, how to use a firearm. But in that, this has nothing to do with the real problem. The real problem is people have to get better. And we're not. Like, we're degrading right in front of them. It's going in the wrong fucking direction. And so, it's a silly argument because no one's being honest about the truth of this thing, right? The essence of what I'm talking about here.
And then the vice president got in on it. And then he says, of all the weird left-wing culture wars in the last few years, this is by far the most bizarre. How dare you pray for innocent people in the midst of a tragedy? What are you even talking about? I don't think, can he read? Isn't he an Ivy League graduate?
I see how much prayer is powerful in people's lives. It's about the fact that you have a platform. You're the vice president of the United States. You can do something to address what is an epidemic and a crisis that is addressing kids in our lives. Yeah. Instead, you're taking time to attack me, which is quite telling.
Jen,
Okay, so these two brainiacs. So that's that. Like, but the whole thing is just, this is the problem. Because it's all full of shit, right? They're not, everyone has their agenda. And they have these politicians have a political agenda. And they can't wait to swoop in when something happens or whatever it is, real or fake, whatever, thing that happens. They can't wait to swoop in and push their agenda. And, it's ineffective because the agenda isn't to stop the problem. The agenda is, in this case, to get people's guns, which, the NRA has such powerful whatever. Now Trump's president. That's not going to happen. And if they do get the guns, you'll see what happens, like almost immediately afterwards. Of course, now with Trump and martial law, he's set this thing up. So if you think about a Democratic president having martial law and the American people being disarmed, then, it's over. Like, the government is going to, it already does whatever it wants anyway. But without any sort of threat of a civil war. Okay, so let's go to the Kennedy thing next. Okay, so there's another Don Lemon, Jen Psaki thing.
times when nothing happens, and that is maddening. After the Tennessee shooting at the school, nothing happened. But 3 years ago, when there was the shooting at the Buffalo supermarket, something did happen in 42, 43 days. And a number of Republican senators voted for the package. Was it perfect? It was not perfect. But that only came because the families and the communities put pressure on politicians to do something. And that's when something happens. So that's what gives me like any dose of hope in moments.
But not prayers. Otherwise, you would have no hope. She'd have fucking zero hope when something like this happens, that they wouldn't be able to grab your guns. But now she has hope. You know, when she goes back when Biden was president. You know, these things are just fucking silly, right? It's silly little people. But, you know, trying to look for a point of view that is truthful in these situations when all these people are the same, right? They're all agenda-driven people. You know, they're all trying to push this agenda that doesn't, you know, that whatever their agenda is. And it has nothing to do with the right thing, with the God's will. They're only in the sense that God wants America destroyed. You know, not that God wants that. It's what has to happen, right? That you have an abomination, something that goes against the will of God, and it's based in so many different lies and illusions, from our economic system to our social system to all you know, just everyday life, to the political idea. You know, the idea that politicians and politics is how you get things done. Like, it's silly. And that's the opposite of the truth, right? It's there as a distraction because they don't make the decisions. Money makes the decisions. That's why, you know, it's only lobbyists and money that affect these kind of things, right? And so the outcomes of policy, and that is, you know, the will of the people never is, and if it was the will of the people, it'd be even more fucked up because people are so screwed up. And so, you know, when real religion, when people embrace God within them, not the bullshit religions that we have now, especially, you know, our religion, the religion of Christianity that dominates America, you know, you're trying to bend Christ's words to your will as a religious person and to your agenda, and trying to say that, you know, you're a godly person because you know, God, God is you're praying to God to back your will, right? There's so many people who claim to be religious and they have no relationship with God, especially these powerful people that are pushing a godly agenda in the Republican Party, but they're not connected to God. They're not bowing before God. They're using God to push their political views. And so that's why the world is in a fucking shitty place. It's, you know, it's going south because it's all ego driven. And she didn't even do her hair for Don Lemons.
The White House says it has fired CDC Director Susan Monterez less than 1 month after she was confirmed by the Senate. 1 month. That was quick. It follows a dramatic back and forth in which Monterez was pressured to leave the agency after reportedly clashing with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. over vaccine policy. But she refused to resign. The Washington Post reports Monterez was pressed for days over whether she would support rescinding certain approvals for coronavirus vaccines. Then, in a social media post last night, the Department of Health and Human Services announced Monterez was no longer the director of the CDC. But just hours later, her lawyers responded, saying she had not resigned or been fired, writing in part, quote, when she refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that, she has been targeted. She will not resign. The White House responded with a statement formally terminating Monterez, arguing she is not aligned with the president's agenda of making America healthy again.
So wait,
I'm confused because he loved his warp speed.
Donald Trump's agenda is to undermine Donald
vaccine.
Trump's.
She's Operation Warp Speed, she's saying, which is true. So, this is where they get fucking goofy now. You know, like I was saying, my wife and I like this documentary that HBO put together about dark money. But to center it around abortion and how there's people outside in the state house in whatever city, don't tell me, don't care, need to know, which I know it is, but I can't remember it. It's not Cleveland, but the city where the capital is in Ohio. And they are, is it Columbus or Dayton? I don't know. They're out there saying, shame on you for pushing this abortion. They had these abortion laws that were very restrictive. That, they were the heartbeat law, where once the heartbeat shows up, it's at 6 weeks. Which is, this issue here where the Democrats so desperately want you to kill fetuses, but want to save the kids who don't, who want to save the kids in schools and these things, right? Well, and it's the opposite for Republicans. They only care about life when it suits their agenda, right? Whatever that might be. But you have this issue with the CDC and, this stuff with the COVID stuff, right? Which Trump pushed with his Operation Warp Speed. But, Kennedy is, to whatever extent, and again, is it performative? Is it, it's hard for me to believe that this will ever fully be embraced because pharmaceutical companies have the money. Money always wins. And this woman, whatever her name is, Susan Monterez, she's a pharmaceutical shill. I mean, that's what this is about. Because we all know the bullshit that they pulled over COVID and the bullshit that pharmaceutical companies are doing to push this agenda, this healthcare agenda that destroys people's lives, right? I mean, the side effects and the lack of true health. And, we have 45% obesity and all these other things. But, while it's going on, it might be something good, like Kennedy's doing here. Like, I have no faith and hope in it, and, it doesn't affect me because I minimize my interaction with allopathic medicine. And I've had some good doctors, some good healers. And, I have a more biological dentist that had some more understanding of these points of view, but he said, we're all allopathic doctors. This is their method, right? So anyways.
One of his greatest achievements
He
with
takes
Operation Warp
responsibility
Speed.
for making the vaccine available to America and opening up America again.
And the world.
Making it safe.
Wait, so the White House is now against that?
He was touting it 2 days ago at that cabinet meeting. He
Well,
went
because
on
it
a long
was a big
speech
deal.
about how great it was because
You
it
can't argue.
was.
And now people are getting...
Because it was. But you guys didn't give him credit for Operation Warp Speed, which was a fucking disaster. And didn't do anything in terms of... Bill Gates admitted that COVID mutated itself out of existence. And so the vaccine had zero to do with that, right? So...
Fired for agreeing with the president?
I don't get it. That's chaos.
Wow.
So lawyers for Monterez say this is legally deficient, that she remains as CDC director. At least 4 top officials at the agency have announced their resignations, one saying he no longer can serve in the role because of the ongoing weaponization of public health.
So these are all the people. They hired this woman, and she was a pharmaceutical shill. They push this agenda because we all know, I think most of us here know the truth about what that had to do with the vaxxers and all the rest of it, right? And the big pharma, and what big pharma has done to people's lives. There's 200 medications that cause depression and or suicidal ideation as a part of their supposed side effects, but they're not side effects, they're effects. They're things that, for some people, you take some of these SSRIs, and they will cause depression, and you might commit suicide or want to commit suicide from the medication. 200 drugs. And that's just one thing, right?
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Tonight, the ongoing standoff at the Centers for Disease Control continues as career scientists protest the destruction of what is a foundational part of our shared safety.
A career scientist. So this is, these two things: the religion that has been corrupted with the fake Christian Barbie truther and people who use prayer as a weapon. Oh my God, so many people are praying, and they're not praying. Like fucking, somebody who is not connected to God, their prayers are how their prayers going to get to God, right? If you're not connected to God, then how can you? If you're not willfully connecting to God, then how are your prayers going to get to God, right? The third master Sajmark system said wealthy people don't pray because if they pray to God, they would connect to God, and God would say, yeah, why don't you use some of your money to make things better, right? Why don't you spend some of your money to improve things? Which, of course, we know that would happen. There's lots of times and not lots of times, there's every day, there's ways that people with money could make the world a better place. They could use their money to do something to better the system in the world and help deserving people extricate themselves out of their issues, whatever they might be. But if you start praying, your heart starts opening up. Then you're going to start feeling, if you pray to God in a sincere way, then, you meditate, you connect to God, and God shows you things that you could do, and now you can't, you have to seal those things off. You got to, like, if you're doing bad shit, like sociopathic things, you have to seal that shit off, because if you don't, you feel like the effects of your actions. When I started to meditate, even before then, there were times that, like, I would say things, like mean things to people. And then I would go to bed, even before I meditated, and I would feel bad about it. Like, I would, feel it. I'm like, I wish I didn't say that. It would be there. And then when I started meditating even more, in the Sajmark system, when I would say something mean to somebody or, like, whatever, even if it was truthful, if I said it in a way that, hurt the person, I'm telling them the truth about themselves, but, it hurt their heart or whatever, I could feel it. If I hurt somebody's heart, I can feel it in my own heart, right? It's a part of the Sajmark system. Like, when you do things, you feel the pain of others in your heart, especially if you are contributing to that, whatever it is. And so, it becomes a feedback loop. And, it's, whatever, let's move forward here.
The American public health infrastructure. This was the scene outside CDC headquarters in Atlanta just a few hours ago, when dozens and dozens of staffers staged a clap out in support of those top officials who resigned en masse this week to resist the dangerous crank trying to force changes to our health system. Now, from the start, it was clear, at least to a lot of us, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Okay, so we have a shitty healthcare system. 45% of our children, of our adults, are obese. It's high, all these kids who are obese as well. Child obesity and adult obesity. So we have a shitty food system and a shitty healthcare system, because the healthcare system isn't doing anything to prevent obesity, which is totally preventable. Cancer, preventable. Heart disease, preventable. Based on diet and inputs and things and lifestyle. Also the screens and how much time people spend now, the lack of exercise and these other things. People are eating shitty food, and people are poisoning themselves, right? With fast foods, processed foods, unsaturated fats, all those things, all these seed oils, all this stuff, canola oil, and then the fried foods, like fuck, and then all the rest of these things. And so the healthcare system sucks. So to call this guy a crank when the health system needs drastic changing. And I'm not saying RFK Jr. is a real guy and a real one, and he's going to do the real thing, and Trump's going to back it, And I got a little video coming up of a trolling video where they show his fucking legs. It's kind of funny. Some of the AI that's like he's wearing just this underwear, and you see his fucking legs or whatever. And they've made his legs be. You'll see it in a second. But the system's a mess. The food system, the healthcare system, everyone knows it. Like, everyone knows that there's side effects and bad shit for allopathic medicine, and it's not fucking effective, right? It's not preventative.
Would use his position as Donald Trump's director of Health and Human Services to dismantle the public health system as we know it. The latest example is his attempt to force out Susan Monterez, the head of the CDC, less than a month into her tenure after he selected her and she was confirmed by the Senate, forcing her out over disagreements on his attempts to restrict access to the COVID vaccines as well as others. Now, Monterez insists she's not going anywhere yet, that she actually hasn't legally been fired by the president, but Kennedy has already lined up her replacement, his close aide, a guy named Jim O'Neill, who is an associate of, get this, billionaire Trump backer Peter Thiel. As a result, a number of top CDC officials announced their resignations in solidarity with their boss, Monterez. With one, Dr. Jen Layden, who will join me in a moment, writing in her resignation letter, quote, everyone should have a professional true north, and encouraging her staff not to lose sight of theirs.
Well, by quitting, you're making it easier for his agenda to be, we're quitting. That doesn't help. Like, your quitting has no bearing on, you have a couple of days where you talk shit on a show like this that nobody watches. And then, Kennedy goes about and puts in anti-vaxxers. Like, why would you quit? Like, where's the resistance to? I mean, again, these are all big pharma shills.
And so today, employees signaled their own true north at the center's headquarters in Atlanta, where some of the resigning leaders were met with cheers and adulation. Woo! They were literally given their flowers by a grateful crowd. These are not Democratic Party activists or progressive thought leaders. Rather, these are career public health professionals who have spent years, if not decades, committed to the goal of
pushing big pharma's agenda.
curbing the spread of disease and making America
You are our heroes.
a healthier country. In remarks to the crowd, three of the resigning officials spoke about how crucial an independent CDC is.
What makes CDC great are the people that make CDC up, the scientists, everyone that makes this family. You are the people that protect America, and America needs to see that you are the people that protect America, and we are going to be your loudest advocates.
What makes us great at CDC is following the science.
You actually think that you guys are great? Like, who thinks the CDC is great? You guys did such a great job with COVID, and you're doing such a great job with the autism epidemic, or the 60% of kids who are depressed. You're doing a great job of fucking, America is unhealthy. We're fucking getting unhealthier, right? And so you guys are doing a good job. Like, there's an autism epidemic. It went from 1 in 10,000 in the 1970s to 1 in 26, 1 in 35, whatever it is, right? Of kids becoming autistic. And then all the kids who are on medications, and they're depressed and, anxiety and, ADHD and shit. Like, that's not doing a good job. But the obesity thing is probably the most telling, because it's just right there. Everyone knows being obese is not healthy. And what have you tried to do? Make it like it's normalize it, right? Oh, you don't want to, fat shame anybody. And I'm not saying you should fat shame anybody, but like the idea that you're killing yourself and you fucked yourself with your, I was watching The Biggest Loser documentary on Netflix. Kind of interesting. And I think I talked about this, but, the people that were losing a lot of weight, they all gained the weight back. And it was because their metabolism is fucked. Their metabolism is permanently damaged by becoming obese. So once you become obese, there's no possibility for you to live a normal life again, because your metabolism gets destroyed by whatever you're eating, whatever you're doing, your lifestyle. And then you just have it. Like, that's your thing. You're going to be obese for the rest of your life. Or you're going to starve yourself, because that's the options.
So let's get the politics out of public health.
Because it's only now. There's been no politics in public health. The shit that they rolled out during the COVID stuff, that wasn't political at all. The politics have just entered into public health.
Let's go back to the objectivity and let the science lead us, because that's how we get to the best decisions for public.
Hold your flowers. Look.
We need Congress to intervene. We need our appropriations. We need to follow science. We need to have.
It's Deb Horry. Deb Horry is telling you what. She should have like a big, I used to say you have a dildo that says Pfizer on it right here.
Ethics back.
Tattooed on
All
the
of
face.
these scientists like Dimitri and Beyonce are doing the work on the ground. We need to be able to do it without interference and following data and science.
Right now, it sure looks like the CDC is not able to operate without political interference, especially when it comes to vaccines. Even though RFK Jr. pledged just 7 months ago when he was seeking confirmation as health secretary to let the public health experts operate free from his own weird beliefs.
His weird beliefs. They're weird. They're so fucking weird, his beliefs. They go through his thing, there's testimony. And then all the rest of this stuff. All right. So that's that. That is, you'll see if it has any effect or not. I mean, it's not, Trump is a disaster. And so, as they all are. Okay, so I'm editing. Kennedy's going to just sit there and lap up a bunch of bullshit at Trump's cabinet meeting, which I get to, later on this video. And, with the idea that money always wins, and, this idea that there's an the people that are overseeing the government handling the presidents and the politicians, and, there's people above the people that are supposedly the top of the food chain. That I said in the beginning of the video, because I talk about that throughout, but not here. I want to address that here. So I don't know what Kennedy will be able to get through, and I don't know how sincere he is. We know how much he taint licked on Israel and that debacle. But, if money always wins, and the agenda always gets pushed forward in some way, even though it sometimes doesn't get accepted right away, or some things get rejected. They try some things and the American people don't accept it, and everything to do with the gun control, things like that. I mean, they haven't been able to grab the gun. Like sometimes they just can't get something. Like they want the guns but can't get the guns, right? That kind of thing. But with Big Pharma's lobby and then the global agenda of depopulation, because depopulation has to happen. It's going to happen either naturally or man-made, or really a combination of both. There's too many people, not enough resources, and all these overpopulated cities, and the degradation of the human, genetics based in, people not getting enough protein and just being, so much malnutrition and the chemical stuff and the bad foods and all the rest of it, right? So human beings are really degraded right now. That's why you have these bloodlines. They want to keep their bloodlines pure because so many people's genetics have been tampered with. And certainly the vax and COVID and these things might play into that, or have played into that, obviously. Now you have defibrillators in elementary schools. And so there's, this idea out there that we have that there's going to be another one. Let me do the meme here.
There's going to be another pandemic.
Sure that we're ready because there will be another pandemic.
Another one for the next pandemic, which will happen.
What if this one's enough? What if the COVID and the vax are already enough and there doesn't have to be another one? So the stuff that Kennedy's doing, and if that stuff sticks and holds, either they'll reverse all of it and roll out another pandemic and still do the same bullshit they did the first time and force everybody to, participate the way they did. Or this one was enough. Like, we don't know. It doesn't have to kill a lot of people right away. But the main thing is, if you have young people who aren't able to reproduce, people who are young kids now who later on can't have kids, in a children of men type scenario, then the pandemic's done its job, right? And the vax, whatever else, right? So, we don't know how this is all going to play out, but I know it's not going to solve the problem. I know it's not, none of these things, any good things that are done are not going to stick, right? They'll be overridden when they need to override them. Right now, they're not playing an immediate pandemic, but who knows when it's going to happen, right? But the key thing is, which I said in the beginning, there's no way that they would allow these people just to do their thing, right? Sometimes, they can't push an agenda because people aren't buying it. And they have to back off for a while. Like New World Order, they had to kill that, that whole term, New World Order. But they didn't have to kill the agenda, right? They just rebranded it. And so, that's the whole kind of point of this video. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. So here it is.
We're fighting fire with fire, and we're going to punch these sons of bitches in the mouth. And we need to stand up to this authoritarian. We need to stand up at this moment. If you've got issues with what I'm putting out, you sure as hell should have concerns about what he's putting out as president.
We have noticed a certain politician lighting up social media with long partisan tirades written in all caps, no less. Nope, not President Trump, but Gavin Newsom.
Oh my God, this guy's so bad. Anyway, so, going back to what I was saying, and I said in the voiceover last night, do you think this is the top of the food chain? You think that people running for president and then the president himself is it? It's silly. Anybody who would understand power dynamics and how power and control is a big part of everything. Power and controlling people, power and controlling points of view, all these things. I mean, they do everything to control you, using fear and manipulation on a marketing standpoint, how to get you to buy their shit, how to buy their products, and making markets out of nothing. Like cosmetics and things like this, fashion, just creating things to being publicly embarrassed by the way you dress so that you have to adhere to whatever the fashionista people are doing, and saying is the vogue thing to be wearing, all this stuff that happens, right? People are, all the pressure that you have to participate in the economy based on a lot of bullshit that you don't really need. And it's just artificial markets that have been created. And so they manipulate people in every possible way. Going back to the book Propaganda from Edward Bernays about how TV was going to be used to manipulate people and control people, and television, and now, of course, the internet even more so. And so with all that manipulation and control, you think they would just wing it like with these politicians? Of course not. And so what you have is two failed people. That Governor Gavin Newsom has fucked up California. It's not debatable. California is way worse than it used to be, and he's been in charge of it during its downfall. And that should be the defining, his evidence. Like if you were drafting a football player and the football player threw like 100 interceptions and 0 touchdowns, and you were evaluating this potential, pick, and you'd say, well, this guy sucks, right? Based on his performance on the field. And if he had a great media campaign, right? But you looked at what he did on the field, you wouldn't draft him. I mean, football teams are more efficient than the government. And so the same thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a failure at business. So he was an outsider who was supposed to be a great businessman, but he wasn't. He went bankrupt 6 times, and that doesn't really even indicate his failure. As a person, too, right? I mean, all the friends with Jeffrey Epstein, these things like that. Hobnob with the Clintons, was a Democrat forever, and yet the Republicans bought into his bullshit. So what Gavin Newsom is doing is what Trump did, and that is to launch a media campaign that makes him viable candidate. So he's auditioning, he's getting the American people's support and auditioning for the people who control the system to be handpicked if he's already one of those people. He was already talked about for replacing Joe Biden. And so this is all this is, because their performance doesn't, they should not be promoted and fail upwards. These are 2 failures, right? And so all this stuff is just for show. It's just for, well, this guy is a viable candidate, and so he's controlled by the controllers, and he's trying to show that he can win enough American people's support and the media support, so it makes it look like he's a real one, like he's a real candidate, a real Democrat. But he's a failure. Like, his policies are a failure. But that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Because the American people are too stupid to figure that out, whether it's Trump or, anything, or this guy or Joe Biden or any of these other people. The American people just embrace what you give them. They have to pick somebody, so they'll find a way to love Joe Biden, even though they, didn't like him before. And they'll find a way to love Trump, even though he's a piece of shit, right? Because that's what they are divided into, these two groups. And so, some of these people are just abhorrent, like Kamala Harris, and nobody can possibly like her. But they still did, And so then there was this ad here.
So the White House had created a TikTok, and it went so poorly for them that Billy McLaughlin, the director of digital content, actually ended up resigning.
Boom. That's the proper use of AI.
Yesterday, he said, "It's been good, it's been great, I got to go." It could definitely have something to do with the...
All right, so this is these guys. They're like, it's all about superficial performances, because these guys don't really have any power. They have the power that's given to them, and they can do what the controllers want them to do. And that's what Trump's doing, and that's what Newsom's doing. And so they're being rewarded, and they have good campaigns to win people over to the fact that, they're failures. I mean, to erase the failure part and make them sound like they're actually going to change something. So I'm in the editing portion of this video, but let's say this is what Trump's legs look like, or just even half as bad as this. And you saw him like this, right? It would change everything. Like, if you saw Trump in some Speedo, like, they did in the when they did the Gaza video where him and Netanyahu were in the new Gaza Trump club and sipping pina coladas, it would change your confidence in him. Like, if you saw him, like, when he's doing his comb over, or any of those things, and the illusion was, I'm talking about Trumpers, if they saw him this way, like, you can't unsee that, right? Like, you can't have confidence in a guy. That's... You get it. So then there's the Governor Newsom press office. So he's not making any of these memes, right? He's got a team, so it sucks. He signs off on them, maybe. In honor and thank you, the American King, Gavin Newsom's vocal revolution. I don't know who that guy is. Laura Low Ratings Ingram on Fox News is a terrible case of Newsom derangement syndrome, NDS. The American people love me, Gavin C. Newsom, America's favorite governor. Fox should cancel Laura immediately or face huge consequences. Thank you, GNC. So there's Stephen Miller. There's something here that I saw a tweet, but the person didn't show the whole tweet in a video. This is National Guard things. They put a lot of stuff up here. There's a bunch of things here where they're showing you that California is better than Florida on homicides, better than West Virginia, better than Virginia. And this, J.D. Vance, Just Dance Vance, who nobody liked until Trump picked him out of the bargain bin in the Walmart clearance section, went on Fox to trash me, Gavin C. Newsom, America's most popular governor. The dancing queen can't stop. Live rent-free in his head. A very tiny space. Almost no room with couch. He is very weak. The guy can't run. Takes vacations. He takes more vacations than any vice president in history. We have some lazy ones. Got caught taking photos in the bathroom, very sick, after applying his eyeliner, and wears a communist red shirt. Perfect, since Chairman Trump now owns Intel and tells him what to wear. Why does Fox air this nonsense? They edit the tapes and even try to make him look smart, but he's a total joke. Fox should be ashamed. Stop giving airtime to a total loser. His time would be better spent practicing for his soon debut on Dancing with the Stars. Everyone's laughing at him. Believe me, thank you for your attention to this matter. Gavin C. Newsom. Again, he's not writing these things, and then more of these comparison things. There's something here. Ohio. They're trying to say they have less homicides. Right, because of their massive population. So the world leaders are laughing at Trump behind his back. He's being played everywhere. It's an embarrassment. So there's something down here. More homicide, more homicide, more homicide. To compare his state to any other state when it's gone fucking quickly south, right? They can, they have a lot of people there. So they can say their rates are better, but they have more murders, right? They have more homicides. It's just that they have the most people. It's the highest populous state. There's something about Trump being senile here. And Jesus Christ, look at how much stuff they put out here. After all the stuff we saw with Joe Biden. So to prove my point here, people with dementia repeat false things over and over again. Grok. Yes, people with dementia repeat false statements or beliefs or behavior often linked to memory impairments and cognitive changes. This can manifest as confabulation, where they create or repeat false memories to fill in gaps in recollection or perseveration, which they fixate on particular idea or statement. So he's basically saying Trump has dementia without saying his name. And, we know Joe Biden had dementia. So you have two candidates, two presidents, who are the oldest two candidates to ever run for president, in Joe Biden and Trump. And as predictable, as one would predict, they both have severe health issues, and they show a steady decline because they're in their fucking 80s, like late 70s, 80s. And, they've lived bad lives, and they haven't consumed healthy foods and, whatever it is, right? There's issues. So as I was saying before, in the beginning, why would people who control the system not have a backup plan to control a dementia president with health effects of dementia? Well, even Fox News is crediting the greatest governor in the world, Gavin C. Newsom, for making Cracker Barrel great again. Thank you. So this is their thing. Wow, after Gavin C. Newsom called for Cracker Barrel to keep its beautiful logo today, the company did exactly that. Thank you, Governor. America is grateful to you. Master win Patriots, all because of me, Gavin C. Newsom. This whole thing with Cracker Barrel. So why would, so you're finally releasing the Epstein files. So why would any of these people who control the system, people with money and power, run the risk of an arbitrary president who went nuts because of dementia or just crazy? Give people, no, a leashless power. They wouldn't, right? They wouldn't do that. Because why would they? So the whole thing is silly. That means that there has to be gatekeepers all up and down the government, in and out of the government, and shadow government stuff. It has to be there. It has to be there in a global system because, one crazy president could just take down the whole system. So everything that Trump's doing is intentional. Like they want him to do it. Well, president says about me, Gavin C. Newsom, he's a nice guy, looks good. Thank you for the kind words, little hands. Everyone seems to be talking about me, America's Governor, Gavin C. Newsom. And this is a strategy, right?
Good. Hi, everybody. How you doing? He's a nice guy. Looks good. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Boom. They got him. And so this, this is a strategy that's working, but it's a strategy. It's not sincere. It's not who he is. He's got a team of people doing this. Trolling. I'm into trolling. But that doesn't mean Gavin Newsom has any fucking, he has a team of meme people creating these memes. He's not even the creative force behind it, right? He didn't even probably come up with this strategy. It was pitched to him, and he said, all right, go for it. And it's working for him. But that doesn't mean anything about him. He's just auditioning for the powers that be and showing that he's a viable candidate that can carry an audience, right? That he has a team of people that can market to, whatever people that are going to follow him. And you just need enough to make it look like you're legitimate as you impose these controllers' policies that are there to bring down the country because the country has to be brought down. It's not that the country has to be brought down. It's that the country's been fucked for a while. It's just been not told to you, right? Like, we're fucked in every possible way, starting with morality and then the economy and then all the other things with it. And so, that's led to what we have now, right? And so, and what we're going to have in the future. So they have to tell you at some point, yeah, we've been fucked for a while. Like, this is bad. And we have to, go back on all of our promises on Social Security and the system and home ownership and all the things that you thought you would have forever. Like, that's gone. Like, America is fucking a third world country. We're just pretending to be a first world one. So I was going to cover this cabinet meeting. But again, just days ago, things have always happened. And this thing's 4 hours long. So let's go through some of these things here. He said something here about crime being down. Let's start here.
They respect Marco. They respect all the people around the table. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go around the table. You seem to like it. Your audience seems to like it based on ratings. And I want to mention, about crime because we have...
That's what's important is ratings.
A young lady here, Iris, of Epoch Times. You're Iris, aren't you, huh? And I heard you were very savagely mugged in the city. And I'm not going to let that happen under this administration.
No, we're gonna create martial law because Iris got mugged.
And that was last year. And would you like to mention what happened?
Of course. So first of all, thank you, Mr. President.
Do you want to listen to this?
For having me here to share my story to the room and to the broader public. My name is Iris Tao. I'm a White House correspondent for NTD, the sister media of the Epoch Times. So more than 2 years ago, it was a Saturday morning.
Okay, she got mugged. Can't really hear. So here. It's listen in here. Here's stuff.
They haven't, I told Sir, my friend, but I have a lot of friends that are going out to dinner all the time now in D.C. and they weren't doing it. 12 days ago, they would never even think. One of my friends went out 5 times. It was 4 times the last time I told. Now it's 5 times. He said, I love going out to dinner, and restaurants are starting to open again. A lot of them closed because, nobody wanted to go into a restaurant.
The Washington, D.C. was practically boarded up. Nobody was going to restaurants. Like, you think they would let this guy make his own decisions? I mean, look at this motherfucker, right? He's just babbling about shit that doesn't fucking make sense at all. Washington, D.C. has been whatever it has for a number of years in terms of the crime. It's not really where he's talking about. Like, there's areas where the crime is happening. It's not on the mall. And I don't think they even have martial law, National Guard people on the mall, area. They probably have it in the, the areas where there's high crime rate. Like, I don't even know. Like, who knows? But it's just silly. Like, it's a silly idea. Like, if crime is that bad and things have gotten that bad, martial law is not the solution. Like, it means that you're fucked. Like, your system's completely fucked. When crime goes to the extent where rich people can't go out to dinner because they fear they're going to get mugged, well, then you're already in an open air jail, right? Where the criminality is just in the, like, you have good areas in every city. You have areas where, people go out and there's restaurants and bars and shopping and things. And there's those places become places where you can't go because you're worried about getting mugged, like legitimately getting mugged, not just some random, like a winning, like a losing the lottery of mugging, right? And so, like, the whole thing's just silly. And they wouldn't let this motherfucker just wreck the country if they didn't want him to do it, right?
To get to a restaurant or even sit in the restaurant. But you see a big difference now, don't you?
I do pass by Union Station every day on my way home, and I do feel a lot safer seeing the trucks right outside, seeing the National Guard troops members right outside. It does make me
So you
feel
see National Guards outside, it makes you feel safe. Maybe you, but the rest of us.
like I'm hopeful about DC again, and one day hopefully we can raise our family here.
Thank you very much. That's nice. And those are tough troops, too. Those are not politically correct troops. We don't have politically correct anymore. We have tough guys, tough people.
Tough guys out there. There's a bunch of tough guys. Those are tough troops. They're tough out there. They'll just go beat the shit out of anybody who looks like a mugger or an illegal.
Including some tough women. But we have tough people, and when you look at them, I tell you, they showed one scene where a bunch of Trinidad guys or whatever, maybe MS-13, maybe.
Like, who would know? Who would know if they're actually that? I mean, we don't know exactly what they are.
MSDNC, okay? Because to me, they're worse. I think they're worse. MSNBC maybe is worse than Trinidad. Real scum. Real scum. Real
Maybe you should shut MSNBC down then, since they're worse than cartel gangs. Once you shut them down, you fucking moron.
Honest people. But anyway, they went into this gang, I think it was Trinidad, Venezuela, and they weren't nice to this group of people.
So there is a Venezuelan gang setting up shop in Washington, D.C.? Is that what you're fucking trying to tell us? And the National Guard beat the shit out of him? Is that like, it's just fucking moronic. Like, it's just, they don't even, I mean, he's not even talking to anybody with a double-digit IQ at this point, right? Like, who would believe that? Like, you'd have to believe this guy is honest, and how would anybody believe that? He just doesn't even know which gang it is. He's, like, talking in, like, you know, I don't know, there's a bunch of guys out there, and fucking our National Guard beat the shit. It wasn't very nice to him.
The gang was calling them sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here. You're no good. Get out of here. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. These are people that beat up people all day long. And they're calling these soldiers. That's what they are.
Soldiers on the street. Yeah, that's right, you fish boy motherfucker. You got soldiers on the street. Posse Comitatus. And you want to do it in all these other cities because you're a piece of shit. And the controllers are pushing for a fucking martial law agenda, and you're bringing it to people, and they're too stupid to fucking know what's happening because they believe everything you say because they're fucking dumb fucks, right?
Soldiers. There's no games. I said, you don't have to be politically correct. And you know the way they used to spit in the face of the soldiers, with the soldiers standing like this, and you'd have some guy or some woman sometimes screaming at them from 1 inch away. They're standing there, and they're told you cannot do anything, and they start spitting, actually spitting in their face. And I said, you spit, we hit. And
Good policies. That's like, I mean, spitting, it definitely means hitting. Spitting leads to hitting, exactly. Like, everyone knows that.
You're authorized to do that, all of those things. But your story is great, and there are other stories here, but they don't have to tell them. But some people are ashamed to tell them. They don't want to tell them. But it was like a jungle, and it's not a jungle anymore. And it's going to get so good that this will be the safest capital there is. It'll be one of the safest places in our nation, anywhere. And right now it's one of the most unsafe places, but not now. 12 days ago, it was the most unsafe place
but not anymore.
in the nation.
That's 12 days ago. That was so 12 days ago.
False crime numbers because, I mean, I heard the mayor, and I like the mayor, you know.
All right, let's move on.
I don't care if I like her or not. If she
America, and I want to mention the big negotiations.
Biggest price of it. Now, that's going to lower Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. This is going to lower everything because drugs go for everything. It's going to have the biggest impact, I think, of anything that can possibly be done. But your costs are going to be going down for medicine, for prescription drugs, will be going down at levels that nobody
execute your plan. So I'm supporting Bobby as he executes his plan.
Good. Right?
Yes. And this cabinet meeting is supposed to be about working Americans and bring jobs back to this country, and particularly rural America. And I want to mention the big, beautiful bill. Right now, we spend 7% of Medicaid dollars on rural hospitals. So they're getting the short end of the stick. It's about
It's a big, beautiful bill. It's a triumph.
$1 million from Harvard. Don't negotiate, Linda. They've been very bad. Don't negotiate. Go ahead.
All that's working well. Mr. President, thank you very much. Since we are focusing today on Labor Day, and I know that Kelly and Lori are both going to echo some of the things that I'll say as well. We are really focused.
How about A1? Remember she called AI A1? This is Vince McMahon's wife, right? The Secretary of fucking Education. Like, how idiocracy. You think the people would allow this to happen? You think that they would say, hey, let's let the American people vote and let them elect this fucking moron here, and he can appoint fucking WWE morons, and they would just allow that to happen. Like, it'll work out. Like, this is, the people are micromanage everything. They control our system. Everything is controlled. Like, everything, there's so much control. We live in a police state already. Like, it's just there. Everyone kind of knows it but doesn't know it. And so, I mean, just silly.
In our workforce. But what I'm finding with great joy around the country is that states really are being innovative and working more with middle schools and with high schools to make sure that we are having hands-on learning. There are pathways to jobs that are happening now. And
boom, that's the big, beautiful bill.
Joe Kent are working across different agencies with Homeland Security, DEA, FBI, and others to catch terrorists. Both those who are trying to come into our country, those who may already be
There's
in
just the big terrorists. We're getting those fucking terrorists. Terrorists, they're the worst.
our country. They are finding the worst of the cartel bosses and making sure that they're not able to continue to wreak havoc and terror in our communities.
Boom, way to go.
And small businesses. There's no bigger beneficiary than Main Street because small business makes up 99%
Look at it.
of all
She's got a fucking
businesses
chart. It's chart.
in this country. I've traveled to nearly half of our
Small businesses are getting fucked by the big, beautiful bill. Trump is not a small business person. Trump has always crushed small businesses. Trump is a corporate giant that doesn't pay their bills to vendors and things, doesn't pay his bills to vendors and stuff because small businesses are there to get crushed.
states, 24 unique states. I've made 40
people. Sir, you've had 1.6 million people voluntarily go home to their home countries that were here in this country illegally because of your
Okay, so 1.6 million people have left voluntarily. That's what she's saying. 1.6 million people have just left America. Now, I couldn't believe this shit. There was, let me go to that and we'll come back to this.
We have 1.6 illegal immigrants that have left this country voluntarily. And I think these...
Wait, let's hear that again. Say it.
We have 1.6 illegal immigrants that have left this country voluntarily.
1.6 million. Well, 1.6? You mean one in 6/10 of a person? You mean 1.6 million. So she's such a moron.
And I think these numbers just show exactly the genius of Donald J. Trump. The brilliant mind that he has, that when he was elected in November, he knew he had to make America safe again. And he said, Christie, if you're going to be my Homeland Security Secretary, we're going to follow the law. You're going to do commercial.
1.6 million. So those commercials that she does. Wait, listen to that part.
Law. You're going to do commercials. You're going to tell the world that no longer will we tolerate people being in our country illegally.
Those commercials only go to Trumpers. Nobody else fucking watches those. She doesn't do them in Spanish. She gets up there. She dresses up like a little, like Homeland Security Barbie with her different outfits. And she tells illegal immigrants not to come to America. You think those commercials that you do are going to these people in Venezuela and freaking, Mexico and all these other countries, Guatemala and the rest of them? No, of course not. You think these poor people that are coming here have access to Kristi Noem's videos? And they're like, hey, look at this bitch. We're not going to America. They don't speak English. The hell the fuck are you talking about? You think that's what's doing the job here? Your commercials are making 1.6 million people fucking leave? Who would fucking believe that? Who the fuck would believe that, right? That 1.6 million people just self-deported. They work so hard to get to America, and they're like, all right, we better get out of here. They're self-deporting. why don't you say 100 million? Why don't you say like fucking 20 million? I mean, it's fucking arbitrary. Like, how are you counting these numbers? So 1.6 million people self-deported.
And that they need to go home. And he messaged it strong. There were consequences if you broke the law and you were a criminal in this country and you needed to leave. And overwhelmingly, the world got the message. They're leaving on their own, which is the best thing for American citizens. Not only did 1.6 million people leave the United States that shouldn't be here, but also 2.5 million Americans became employed in the last 6-7.
Oh my God! Are you seriously? You're saying those two things didn't happen? There's jobs immigrants will only do. Americans will not do those jobs. And when they don't do those jobs, I mean, then you add the tariffs and the food production goes down and we're fucked. You know, it's just silly. Again, you think the fucking people who run the world in this country would fucking allow this dope to get up there and fucking actually make decisions? Any of these dopes, right? So the person who posted this was called Trump Army, elected by God, elected by the people, ordained by God. This is Trump Army, and I assume it's some paid bullshit Trump thing. I don't even know if he has real people that post shit anymore. I think they just have a lot of these paid shills because he's so fucking dumb. And then I stand with Trump. Like, there's just all these types of things this person fucking posted. Trump Army. Like, there's just all this MAGA voices, these things, right? And they just post bullshit. Like, no one should, in their right mind, would believe there's 1.6 million people have self-deported.
Again. And today, the average family and individual that lives in this country is safer than they've been in years because of what you've done. We've got 3 months in a row now with 0 illegal aliens coming.
There's 0. Not one fucking one's getting through. I mean, they just fucking make shit up. Like, how do you fucking believe that? How do you believe that there's 0 coming through?
This country, and I want to thank Pete and the Department of Defense for all of their help. They're down at the border with us still, helping us keep that border secure and make sure we know who's coming into this
Thanks, Pete.
country. You've arrested and brought to justice hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens.
Well, you don't have an exact number? Hundreds of thousands. We don't know. Maybe it might be 1 million. It might be a billion. I think it's 1 billion.
But criminals that have perpetuated violence against American people. Sir, you've had 1.6 million people voluntarily go home to their home countries.
Like, how do these motherfuckers, a lot of these people are smart. Most of them aren't, but some of them, like, let's say 40% of them are smart. Like, how would you believe this? Like, how do they go to work and not realize this is a fucking cloud show, right? 1.6. Okay, so let me add this here. My wife and I were going for a walk, and I was talking about this. And so what you're saying here is that people who came here legally, so they had no problem coming to America legally, and they're so scared of her commercials or whatever the fuck else, right? Trump's going to deport them, that they're leaving voluntarily, right? They're so worried about being sent to one of these El Salvadorian jails or something that they're just leaving this country voluntarily. Now, if you live in any number of these countries that isn't Mexico, that are south of the border, in Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, some of these other countries, how the fuck are you going to get there? Like, you're going to get a plane ticket and board a plane and be an illegal citizen, right? Are you going to go to the American government and say, I want to self-deport? They're going to bring you to the border and send you across to Mexico. They're not going to fucking fly you back home, right? So are you saying you flew 1.6 million people home to their country and dropped them off there and the country accepted them? When they decided to self-deport, they could just go back without any paperwork or anything. They could just go back to their homeland. And why would the people do that? Because they might be able to get back in legally? They couldn't get in legally the first time. And it's going to be harder to get in legally under Trump. And so it's going to be harder to get back here illegally. Why would they self-deport? Makes no fucking sense, right? Before they said it was some thousands of people, and I thought that was bullshit. But now they're saying that 1.6 million people have chosen to deport themselves because what? They might get deported, right? I mean, the worst thing is that you get deported on your own. It's not like it's better if you leave on your own terms. You still have to get across the border. you still have to get back to your own country. And so it's not like it's some easy thing, right? I saw the Kristi Noem commercial. I'm not fucking with that. They're going to deport me, so I'll deport myself. And maybe I'll get back in legally, even though I couldn't get in legally the first time. It's just fucking really stupid, right? Makes zero sense.
We're here in this country illegally. Because of your strong message and you enforcing the law, they decided to go home on their own so that they could come back the right way someday and be American citizens.
Yeah, they're not coming back. Like, why would they? Someday? What does someday mean?
What I think is one of the most remarkable statistics is that under Joe Biden's administration, 88% of new jobs went to foreign-born individuals. Under your administration, 2.5 Americans have jobs today that they didn't under the previous administration.
2.5 Americans? 2.5 Americans? They get one person got half a job? Like a part-time job? Like, the fucking stupidity here.
Awesome nation, because we believed in the American dream and we leaned in on it. But the wealthy in our country and the coastal elites that live away from where stuff's actually made, they just lost their way, and politicians just let them have it. Your tireless campaign and your relentless messaging made people realize the American dream isn't dead. It's just been smothered.
It's been smothered. You're such a great guy, Trump. This is abhorrent.
They are announcing another $1 billion investment per your executive order on advanced manufacturing.
Exactly. You're so great, Trump. You did it again.
Thank you for all your help on everything we're doing, and everyone around this room. But yesterday, there was a big, big win. El Mayo pled guilty, and he was the...
But they got El Mayo. But they didn't get Epstein, but they got El Mayo. Fucking Epstein and all the people that were Epstein and did Epstein things, including Trump, they're getting away with fucking Epsteining. But we got El Mayo. With no more El Mayo. Fucking American people can sleep safe knowing El Mayo is fucking... He's pled guilty.
A bigger CapEx boom from here. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning. You have saved this country.
It's so great. Things are going so greatly. I mean, this is fucking grotesque.
Into office this time, the rest of the world owned $24 trillion more of our assets than we owned of theirs. And so when people argue with you about, the trade deficit is not. The trade deficit sends.
You just did such a great job, Trump, fucking wrecking this fucking country.
Honorable Bay, our motto was, those who long for peace must declare for war. We must prepare for war. We don't want war.
Declare for war on the American citizens, exactly. So you think they would allow these two motherfuckers, these dopey motherfuckers, to have positions of power and let them do things unless they said, hey, you guys are really fucked at the head. Go do your thing and take down America, and then we can roll out our agenda. I mean, that would be the only way, right? The only fucking way. It's silly. The whole thing is just silly. These guys and Trump doing this thing where they're all telling him and licking his taint, telling how great he's doing, making up fucking numbers. And anybody who believes this is basically worthless. I mean, they might do something good in their community. They might be good parents, or they might have some redeeming qualities, but they're incapable of understanding and reading people and calling bullshit and thinking for themselves, right there. I mean, they just anybody buying into this bullshit. It's just so grotesque. Okay, so this is towards the beginning. I'm going to wrap this video up here.
See, they caught him on camera. I was at a game, I don't know, like the Army-Navy game or something, and I met him in a hallway. And as usual, you do your job very well. One of these great cameramen had it on tape. But I met this gentleman. I never met him before. Sir, you're doing a great job. You're doing an unbelievable job. Thank you very much. But then he goes on television and says, oh, Trump is a dictator. He's a dictator. And a lot of people have been, so the line is that I'm a dictator, but I stop crime. So a lot of people say, if that's the case, I'd rather have a dictator. But I'm not a dictator. I just know how to stop crime. And you would think...
So you know how to stop crime from your years of going bankrupt in the business world? What made you a stopping crime expert? Were you Batman? A billionaire, fake billionaire, guy by day and answering the bat signal. What makes you an expert at stopping crime?
That Illinois would have such a problem with crime, such a bad governor, he should be calling me and he should be saying, could you send over the troops, please?
Send over the troops. That's what every governor should say. Send the troops over.
Control. It's out of control. In New York, it's out of control. Not as bad as Illinois, by the way. Not even close. And
Okay, so, you know, this is a guy who wants to bring in martial law, and within 12 days, all the crime is going to disappear, and 1.2 million people are going to self-deport. 1.6 million people are going to self-deport. What the fuck is going on? People lap this shit up. I assume somebody believes this, right? There must be some people legitimately buy into this shit because there are a lot of dumb fucks out there. But anyways, you know, like this is what I was saying at the beginning of the video. There's no way that someone like this would be allowed to just go out and fucking do his stuff unless they wanted him to do that. Like he's, you know, that there has to be there's some kind of controlling force out there that's above the presidency and above the politicians and even the corporations that, you know, is, I mean, a shadow government, people that are there making sure that their agenda is kept intact, right? It's just, you know, that's the only way it would work. That's the only way a system like this would work. They wouldn't just have these buffoons come in and just say, all right, well, whatever happens. Well, I don't know if the guy wrecks it. I don't know what we can do about it, right? Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. Its bottom line definitely pointing to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.